I always thought the creepiest stuff about Dragon Ball was unintentional. Those old VHS dubs with bad audio, scenes that aired only once on late-night TV, or animation errors that made characters' eyes look wrong. But what I found last month wasn't a bad dub. It wasn't a fan edit either, it was something else. It started when I visited an old anime shop, the kind of place that still sells laserdiscs and sealed 90s VHS tapes. The owner was clearing out his back room and let me dig through a stack of boxes. Most were nothing special, bootlegs, old magazines, even a couple of rare tapes. But one box was different. It had no label, just a thick layer of dust, and inside, a single VHS tape, black, with a worn white sticker that had one word written in faded red ink. Cell. That was all. I asked the owner if he knew what it was. He looked at it, then at me, and shook his head slowly. "Not for sale," he muttered. "It shouldn't be here." I offered him some money. He didn't say yes, just took it and muttered, "Don't watch it at night." I thought he was joking. When I got back to my apartment, I dusted off my old VCR and popped the tape in. It started with a few seconds of black screen, then some static. The kind of grainy static that flickers and pops, not digital glitching. Then a frame flickered in. It was Cell, in his perfect form. Standing alone, completely still, in what looked like a blank white space, almost like the hyperbolic time chamber. But wrong. The walls were too close. The shadows didn't behave right. There were no sounds, no background music, just the soft hum of static under the image, and Cell, staring at something off camera. After about 10 seconds, the camera slowly panned around, and I realized it wasn't the time chamber. It was a room, a tiny, white, padded room. Cell was standing in the middle of it, and on the walls were photos. Hundreds of them. They were all of Gohan. Different scenes. Him as a child, training with Piccolo, the Cell games. Even ones I didn't recognize. Gohan with Trunks, Gohan asleep in a hospital bed, Gohan crying, blood on his face. Then Cell spoke. His voice wasn't like the usual dubs. It was slower, lower, like it had been filtered through a broken speaker. "He never wanted you to see this." I sat up. They erased what really happened, but some things remain. The screen glitched. Not in a digital way, more like the tape was fighting back. The image bent, warped, colors bleeding. But I didn't stop watching. The shot cut to a strange version of the Cell game's arena. It looked abandoned. Cracks covered the tiles. The ring was missing. The sky was dark. There were no announcers, no Z fighters, no crowd, just Cell and something else. A body. Lying in the center of the arena was what looked like Goku, face down. His gi was torn. His body was too still. The wind moved his hair slightly, but he didn't breathe. Cell walked toward him slowly, step by step, then stopped and looked at the screen again. You remember him as a hero. He crouched down, gently, touched Goku's back. But heroes lie. The screen flashed white. When the image returned, it was a close-up of Goku's face, eyes wide open, blank, and his mouth was moving. Not speaking, just twitching, like someone trying to scream, but no sound was coming out. Then a frame of text flickered on screen. The Cell tape. Unreleased cut, and under it, a timestamp. 4:44:44. That's when I felt it. The temperature in my room dropped. Not like Creepy Show gave me chills. I mean literally. I could see my breath. And from the VCR, I heard something. Knocking. Soft, slow knocks from inside the machine. 3 of them. I ejected the tape immediately, but it didn't stop the knocking. It hasn't stopped. Even now, the tape sits on my shelf. And every night at exactly 4:44 a.m., I hear 3 knocks. Tomorrow, I'm watching the rest, and I'm writing it all down, because I don't think I'm supposed to. I barely slept that night, the cold air clinging to my skin, the 3 knocks echoing in my ears, like a ghost knocking on my sanity. I kept the tape off the VCR, but the knocking didn't stop. It was as if the tape had left a mark, a presence that wouldn't leave me alone. At dawn, I finally worked up the nerve to play the tape again. The screen flickered to life, the static buzzing louder this time, filling the room with a harsh electric hum. The title card appeared, The Cell Tape. This time with a subtitle beneath it, The Silence. The scene opened on a dark forest. Thick shadows twisted between trees that looked impossibly tall, their branches like skeletal fingers scraping the sky. The camera moved slowly, as if cautious, following a faint figure moving silently between the trunks. It was Gohan. He looked different, older. Not the confident fighter I knew from the show, more like a boy haunted by something unseen. His eyes darted nervously, his breathing shallow. The usual battle aura was missing. He was fragile, vulnerable. Suddenly the wind shifted, carrying a whisper. I leaned closer to my speakers. "Help me," it said. I froze. Gohan stopped, looking over. His shoulder, the camera cut to a close-up of his face. Pale, sweat beading on his forehead, his eyes wide with fear. Then the scene twisted. The trees seemed to grow closer, closing in around him. The shadows stretched and writhed like living things, creeping along the ground, wrapping around Gohan's legs. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. The camera panned down to the forest floor, and there, tangled in shadows, was a broken mask. It looked like Frieza's helmet, cracked and blackened, half buried in dirt and leaves. Gohan's eyes locked on it, horror dawning. Suddenly, a scream shattered the silence, but it wasn't Gohan's. It was deep, guttural, inhuman. The camera swung wildly, trying to find the source. A figure appeared. It was Cell, but wrong. His usual perfect form was twisted and grotesque, almost melting, with pieces of his body missing or replaced by strange mechanical parts. His eyes glowed red, burning with rage and something darker. He stepped forward, crushing the cracked helmet underfoot. The screen flickered, then cut to black. A message appeared. Some battles never end. Some memories never fade. I sat back, heart pounding. The tape was more than just footage. It was like a nightmare made real, a story that shouldn't exist. And yet, I was hooked. I knew I had to watch the next part. The tape started with static again, but this time, the screen flickered to a dimly lit corridor. The walls were cracked and stained with dark smears like dried blood. The lighting buzzed overhead, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move just out of sync with reality. At the far end of the hallway stood a figure, Bardock. But he wasn't the fierce Saiyan warrior I remembered. His armor was battered, his face gaunt and pale, like he hadn't eaten or slept in days. His eyes were dull, almost lifeless, yet filled with a desperate, haunted rage. Bardock took slow steps forward, dragging one foot as if it was heavy with chains. The corridor stretched endlessly behind him, disappearing into darkness. Then came the whispers, low, unintelligible murmurs that echoed off the walls and into my ears like a distant chant. Bardock stopped and looked around, his breath shaky. Suddenly, the camera shifted to a first-person perspective, as if I was walking behind Bardock, watching him from just out of sight. The whispers grew louder, turning into faint voices. "Why? Did you leave us? Why did you betray us?" Bardock's eyes darted nervously. He muttered under his breath, "I never left. I was forced." A door at the end of the corridor creaked open. Beyond it was a small, dark room with a single dim light hanging from the ceiling. Inside lay a pile of broken Saiyan armor, shattered and blackened as if burned. Bardock approached and knelt beside the pile, His hand trembled as he picked up a cracked helmet. Tora's helmet. He traced the cracks with his fingers, whispering, "You deserved better, brother." The camera zoomed in on Bardock's face as tears streamed down his cheeks. But then his expression twisted into something cold and unforgiving. The screen flickered violently. Suddenly, Bardock turned around and shouted, "They will pay!" The whispers stopped abruptly, replaced by a deafening silence that pressed down like a weight. Then the scene cut to black. Words appeared on the screen. Abandoned souls, hunger for justice. The tape ended abruptly. I sat in silence, the room, feeling colder than before. Something about this tape was breaking reality. It wasn't just a lost episode or a hacked game. It was a living nightmare. I couldn't stop watching. The screen flickered back on, this time showing a barren battlefield under a blood-red sky. The ground was cracked and dry, scattered with the remnants of destroyed machinery and broken energy blasts frozen mid-air like ghosts trapped in time. In the center stood Bardock, his armor scorched and torn, his eyes burning with a fire that felt almost supernatural. But this Bardock was different. His aura flickered erratically, sometimes bright, then dim, as if his very existence was unstable. The camera panned slowly to reveal shadows moving just beyond the edges of the frame, flickering in and out like distorted memories. Bardock raised his fist, and a voice echoed in his head, whispering, "You left us behind. You abandoned your family. Now you must pay." Suddenly, shadowy figures began to materialize, twisted, corrupted versions of Bardock's fallen comrades. Tora, Fascia, Borgos, all warped by a darkness that pulsed like a heartbeat in the air. Their eyes glowed red, faces twisted into expressions of pain and betrayal. They advanced silently toward Bardock, who stood frozen, caught between rage and despair. The shadows circled him, and the whispers grew louder, turning into anguished cries. Bardock screamed, "I never abandoned you! I fought for all of you!" The shadows lunged. But instead of attacking, they merged with Bardock's body, their forms dissolving into his armor and skin, corrupting him from within. The screen glitched violently, the image tearing and reforming, in a dizzying blur. When it stabilized, Bardock's form had changed. His once proud armor was now cracked and blackened, fused with the shadows of his lost friends, a grotesque blend of flesh and darkness. His eyes, once filled with fire, now glowed cold and empty. The final scene showed Bardock walking away. From the battlefield alone, his steps slow and heavy, leaving behind a trail of dark energy that withered everything it touched. The screen cut to black. Words appeared. "Revenge is a poison that consumes even the righteous." The tape ended. I sat back, heart pounding. The story was no longer just about loss or betrayal. It was about becoming something else entirely. Something cursed. The tape flickered back on, but this time the image was distorted beyond recognition. Colors bled into each other, shapes twisted and melted like melting wax. The static was louder, almost deafening. Slowly, the scene came into focus. Bardock stood alone on a desolate plain, the sky above swirling with dark clouds. His shadow stretched unnaturally long, reaching out like fingers across the cracked earth. Suddenly, a voice, not Bardock's, echoed across the landscape. It was low, mechanical, and haunting. "You cannot escape the past. Your sins follow. You... forever." Bardock's expression hardened. He clenched his fists and screamed, "I will end this curse!" The ground trembled violently as energy erupted from Bardock's body. But this power felt wrong. Dark and unstable, it warped the air around him. The corrupted energy tore at the sky, rending it apart. Then, from the torn sky, a figure emerged, Cell. But this was not the perfect being known from the stories. This Cell was fractured, his form flickering between multiple grotesque versions of himself, each more terrifying than the last. The two faced off, But their battle wasn't one of fists or energy blasts. It was a fight of wills, echoes of memories, and shattered realities. Cell whispered, "You are mine." Bardock roared, "I will break free!" The scene distorted again, and suddenly the tape cut to static. Endless, crushing static, as if the recording itself was being destroyed. A final message appeared on the screen, written in shaky white. Letters. Some tapes are never meant to be watched, and some battles never truly end. The tape ended. I sat there, breathless. The horror wasn't just in what I saw. It was in what I felt. Something dark had followed me through these images, through this cursed recording, and I don't know if it will ever let me go. The tape flickered back on, but this time the image was distorted beyond recognition. Colors bled into each other, shapes twisted and melted like melting wax. The static was louder, almost deafening. Slowly, the scene came into focus. Bardock stood alone, on a desolate plain, the sky above swirling with dark clouds. His shadow stretched unnaturally long, reaching out like fingers across the cracked earth. Suddenly, a voice, not Bardock's, echoed across the landscape. It was low, mechanical, and haunting. "You cannot escape the past. Your sins follow. You... forever." Bardock's expression hardened. He clenched his fists and screamed, "I will end this curse!" The ground trembled violently as energy erupted from Bardock's body. But this power felt wrong. Dark and unstable, it warped the air around him. The corrupted energy tore at the sky, rending it apart. Then, from the torn sky, a figure emerged, Cell. But this was not the perfect being known from the stories. This Cell was fractured, his form flickering between multiple grotesque versions of himself, each more terrifying than the last. The two faced off, but their battle wasn't one of fists or energy blasts. It was a fight of wills, echoes of memories, and shattered realities. Cell whispered, "You are mine." Bardock roared, "I will break free!" The scene distorted again, and suddenly the tape cut to static. Endless, crushing static, as if the recording itself was being destroyed. A final message appeared on the screen, written in shaky white. Letters. Some tapes are never meant to be watched, and some battles never truly end. The tape ended. I sat there, breathless. The horror wasn't just in what I saw. It was in what I felt. Something dark had followed me through these images, through this cursed recording, and I don't know if it will ever let me go. The tape restarted, but this time the image was grainier, as if someone had recorded the recording itself with a shaky handheld camera. The scene showed a dimly lit Saiyan ship drifting silently through space. But something was wrong. The hull was scarred and cracked, blackened by some unknown force. The camera moved inside, revealing the empty corridors, flickering lights, and a faint humming noise that grew louder with each second. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the frame. Bardock, but he was no longer the warrior we knew. His skin was paler, and deep shadows clung to him like a second skin. His eyes, glowing faintly red, scanned the hallway cautiously. As he walked deeper into the ship, distorted whispers filled the air, echoing from the ship's walls. Words like betrayal, abandonment, and curse mixed with agonized cries. Bardock's breathing grew heavier. His voice trembled as he muttered, "This ship, it's a prison." Suddenly, the camera shook violently, and the corridor around Bardock began to twist and warp unnaturally, like reality itself was breaking down. The walls melted, revealing endless darkness beyond, swallowing the light. From the darkness emerged twisted silhouettes, the ghosts of fallen Saiyans. Their forms flickered between human and monstrous, their faces contorted in eternal suffering. They reached out for Bardock, whispering his name, blaming him for their fate. Bardock screamed, trying to push them away, but they fused with his body, feeding off his anguish and rage. The screen flickered violently as Bardock's scream turned into a gurgling sound, his form distorting into a monstrous hybrid of Saiyan and shadow. The tape ended with the chilling message, "In the void of forgotten, soul's darkness waits patiently." I sat, frozen, the weight of the darkness almost suffocating. What had I unleashed by watching? The tape resumed with static cracking across the screen before stabilizing to show Bardock sitting alone in a dark cell-like room. His armor was shattered and deep scratches covered his face. But it was his eyes that held the most terror, wide, hollow, and unblinking. He murmured incoherently, as if trapped in a nightmare he could not escape. The room's walls pulsated, shifting colors from black to blood red and back again. Suddenly, distorted images flashed on the walls, memories or hallucinations, scenes of battle, loss, and betrayal intertwined with faces of those he loved and lost. A voice whispered over and over, barely audible, "You left us, you left us, you left us." Bardock's hands trembled as he clutched his head, trying to silence the tormenting voices. Then the whispers morphed into screams. The camera zoomed in on Bardock's eyes as they reflected a twisted vision of Cell standing over a fallen Saiyan child, screaming, crying, broken. Bardock's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Suddenly, the screen cut to black. A single sentence appeared. "Madness is the price of survival." The tape ended. I felt chills run down my spine. The horror wasn't just physical anymore. It was invading the mind itself. The tape began with a low hum, gradually building into a dissonant symphony of distorted sounds. Whispers, static, and faint cries blending into one unbearable noise. The screen was almost completely black, except for a faint glow revealing Bardock's silhouette standing in the middle of a ruined battlefield under a sky torn by violent lightning. His eyes glowed fiercely, but not with hope or courage. It was a cold, empty light, like the last flicker before a flame dies out. His body was bruised and scarred, the once proud Saiyan armor fragmented and fused with dark tendrils of shadow, curling like living smoke. The camera zoomed in, and Bardock's face twisted into a grimace of pain and determination. He spoke, a voice cracked and weary, yet resolute. "This ends now. No more ghosts, no more chains." Suddenly, the ground beneath him cracked open, revealing a swirling abyss filled with the faces of the fallen, his comrades, his enemies, innocent lives lost in endless war. Their voices rose, a chorus of anguish and accusation. "Why did you survive when we did not? Why did you betray us?" Bardock's fists clenched tighter, veins bulging as he struggled against the torrent of voices. "I am not the monster you make me out to be." A flash of light erupted from his chest, a fierce energy that pushed back the shadows and silenced the screams. But the victory was brief. From the abyss, a new figure emerged, the true source of the curse, a monstrous fusion of Cell's perfect form and the darkest parts of Bardock's soul. This abomination was larger, more terrifying than anything before, a being born from pain, rage, and broken memories. It towered over Bardock, its voice a guttural roar. "You cannot escape what you are." Bardock responded with a roar that shattered the sky itself. The two clashed in a battle not just of strength, but of will, their blows tearing the fabric of reality. Every punch sent shockwaves that threatened to collapse the world around them. Energy clashed with darkness, light with shadow, until finally, Bardock grasped the abomination's core and unleashed a final blast. A blazing explosion of pure will. The screen went white. Silence. Then, a faint image flickered back. Bardock, alone, kneeling, battered but free. The curse was broken, but at a cost. His face bore the weight of 1,000 lost souls. His eyes no longer empty, but deeply sad. He whispered, "Maybe. This is my true fight. Not against enemies, but against the darkness inside." The tape ended, leaving behind a lingering sense of loss and uneasy peace. I turned off the screen, but the shadows in the room seemed to move just a little closer. Some stories never truly end.